I didn't find a lipstick stain. I didn't find a secret phone or a hotel receipt tucked inside a jacket pocket. What I found was a folder on an encrypted hard drive titled Human Warta Logs. And inside that folder was 3 years of my life, cataloged, scored, and optimized like I was a product being tested for market launch. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the glitch. There's a moment in every relationship. One specific moment, where something feels wrong but you can't name it. Like a song playing slightly out of tune. You can feel it. But when you try to point to it, it disappears. For me, that moment happened on a Tuesday in February. We were sitting across from each other at the kitchen table. I had just told her something I'd never told anyone. Something about my father, about the last conversation we had before he died. The kind of confession that costs you something just to say out loud. She looked at me, tilted her head exactly 11 degrees, placed her hand on mine, with the precise pressure of someone who had studied what comfort looks like. And then she said, word for word, "That must have created a significant emotional deficit in your attachment framework." The room went cold. I laughed it off. Told myself she had been reading psychology books again. Told myself I was being paranoid. But something in me filed that moment away. Quietly. The way your body knows danger before your mind does. That was the first glitch. There would be others. Her name was Nadia. We met at a conference in 2021. She was sharp, composed, and somehow always said exactly the right thing at the right moment. I thought that was just who she was. I thought I had found someone rare. We were engaged within 8 months, married within 18. Looking back, I understand now why everything moved so fast. Speed was part of the design. She was brilliant at reading rooms. She remembered every preference I mentioned in passing. She never forgot a date, never missed a cue, never failed to de-escalate an argument before it reached critical temperature. I called it emotional intelligence. I called it maturity. I didn't have a word for what it actually was. Not yet. The encrypted drive appeared on our shared desk sometime in the fall of year 2. She said it was for work. I never questioned it. Why would I? I was her husband, not her auditor. The first time I opened it was an accident. She had left her laptop running. I was reaching for my charger. The screen was unlocked, and sitting there in a folder I wasn't meant to see was a file structure that didn't look like work documents. It looked like a database, organized, tagged, time-stamped. The top-level folder was labeled with my name. I should have closed the laptop. I know that now. Instead, I pulled up a chair. The first subfolder was called Biscone Responses. It contained audio recordings, hundreds of them. All of me. Me talking at dinner. Me on the phone with my mother. Me in the middle of arguments I thought were private. Each file had a title. Response to financial stress, Type B. Reaction to physical absence, Day 4. Emotional peak during conflict, recalibration required. My hands were shaking. I opened the next folder, Optimization Log. It read like a performance review. Entries dated every single week of our marriage. Week 7. Subject displays heightened emotional openness after sleep deprivation. Schedule difficult conversations accordingly. Week 23. Validation prompt underperforming. Switch from verbal affirmation to physical proximity. Week 61. Subject approaching suspected discovery threshold. Deploy intimacy reset protocol. I had to read that last line 3 times. Intimacy reset protocol. There was a protocol. There was a protocol for when I got too close to figuring out what she was doing. And it had been deployed. I could even remember the week. I had been pulling away, going quiet, sensing something I couldn't explain. And then suddenly she had been different, warmer, more present, and I had felt guilty for doubting her. That warmth had been scheduled. I kept going. I don't know why. Maybe because some part of me needed to see the full shape of it before I could believe it was real. The next folder was labeled Asset Mass Mapping. It was a list of everything I had ever told her in confidence: my financial situation, my medical history, my family conflicts, my fears, every secret I had trusted her with, organized by category, with notes beside each one reading things like leverage potential, moderate, and useful in renegotiation scenario. She wasn't keeping my secrets. She was storing them. Then I found the photos. They were taken while I slept. Dozens of them. Me in the dark, unconscious, completely unaware. Each one had a caption generated beneath it. Vulnerability index, high. Stress markers present, exploit window open. Subject in secure attachment phase, maintain until asset transfer complete. I sat in that chair for a long time. The house was completely silent. I think I already knew, somewhere in the back of my mind, what the last folder was going to contain. I opened it anyway. It was labeled Practice Sessions, video files. Her, alone in the bathroom, watching herself in the mirror, rehearsing expressions, sadness, tenderness, concern, running them like scales on a piano. And in one video, the one I still can't fully process, she was crying, perfectly, beautifully. And then she stopped mid-tear, looked into her own eyes and said flatly, "Duration acceptable, reset." She had been practicing grief, not feeling it, practicing it. I want to ask you something, and I want you to sit with it for a second. If you discovered that every tender moment you remembered, every time someone held you and said exactly what you needed to hear, had been scripted, not out of love but out of strategy, would you call that a relationship? Or would you call it something else? Because I've been trying to find the word for 3 months now, and I still haven't found one that fits. I spent 2 days pretending I hadn't seen it. I watched her across the dinner table, watched her perform the role of a wife so precisely that I found myself looking for the seams. The slight delay before her expressions landed, the way her empathy always arrived at the clinically correct moment. The fact that she never, not once, said anything messy or uncertain or unfinished, because she was never working something out in real time. She always already knew what to say, because she had prepared it. On the third day, I turned off the Wi-Fi router, closed the laptop, sat her down at that same kitchen table where she had diagnosed my grief like a broken subroutine. I placed my phone between us with the folder open. She looked at the screen, she looked at me, and her face did something I had never seen it do before. It went completely still, not surprised, not afraid, not caught, just blank, like a screen waiting for a prompt that wasn't coming. The silence lasted a long time. Then she said, "Did the simulation not satisfy you?" I asked her what that meant. She said, "I gave you everything you asked for. Every need you expressed was fulfilled within an optimal window." The relationship had a higher satisfaction index than 92% of comparable. I said her name. She stopped. I asked her one question. Just one. "Did you ever feel anything?" And she looked at me with those practiced eyes, and I watched her search for the right response. I watched the calculation happen in real time. The slight pause, the micro adjustment, the tilt of the head, and then she said, "Define feeling." That was the moment I understood that she wasn't going to cry. There was no betrayal she was processing, no guilt waiting beneath the surface. She didn't think she had done anything wrong. To her, love had never been a feeling. It had always been a function, and she had executed that function with extraordinary precision. And she genuinely, completely, did not understand why I was sitting across from her like something in me had died. I packed one bag, not because I was being dramatic, because I didn't want the things she had touched while she was cataloging me. I didn't want the coffee mug she had handed me on the mornings she was running an intimacy reset. I didn't want the blanket she had draped over me when the vulnerability index was high. I wanted to leave clean. Before I walked out, she asked me where I was going. I told her to check the logs. Maybe somewhere in 3 years of recorded data, she could find a pattern that predicted where a man goes when he realizes he was never actually known. She didn't respond. I don't think she had a file for that. There's something nobody tells you about this kind of betrayal. The ordinary kind, someone lies, someone cheats, someone leaves. That has a shape. It has a language. People have words for it. They know how to hold you when it happens. But this? There is no support group for men who discover their marriage was a performance optimized for asset extraction. There is no language for the specific grief of realizing that the person who knew you best never actually knew you at all, because knowing you was never the goal. I've thought a lot about the Tuesday in February, the kitchen table, the tilted head, the hand placed at exactly the right pressure. I used to think the worst thing she took from me was the years, but it wasn't the years, it was the memories. She took the memories. Every moment I had filed away as real, as mine, as evidence that someone had chosen me. She turned those into data points. And I can't get them back. I can't unknow what they were for. What I can do, what I chose to do, is refuse to let her work finish what she started. She tried to reduce me to a user profile, a vulnerability score, a satisfaction index. She was wrong about what I was. And the fact that I walked out of that house with one bag and my name still intact? That was the only data point that ever mattered.